What's up guys, Tim Little. Welcome back to TacticalBassin. Today we are going in depth with the Dropshot. It's been a little over 2 years since I did an in-depth video on this technique, so I figured it was time to do another one. And before you guys click out of this video, we're gonna talk about some spring techniques, some techniques that involve a bait caster. So for those of you guys that don't have a spinning rod, or you are against throwing a spinning rod drop shot, I'm gonna give you guys some tips on how to catch fish on your fisheries using a bait cast drop shot. We're covering everything today, beginner to advanced. Let's dive in. So why the drop shot? You know, for me, growing up and fishing out here on the West Coast, we have crystal clear reservoirs, we have the Delta, Clear Lake, all these types of different fisheries, and the drop shot is a technique that you can use on all of them and catch big ones. It doesn't matter if you're fishing crystal clear water in Michigan for smallies, or deep reservoirs in California for spotted bass, or flipping and pitching Clear Lake, the Delta for big largemouth. The drop shot should be a technique that you guys are throwing. I've personally seen a buddy of mine, Wes, we were actually fishing a TOC on the Delta, and I was throwing a swim bait, got bit, broke off. He flipped a drop shot in there, 12-pound test, and he stuck a 12-2, an absolute giant, big fish of the tournament, and that ate the drop shot. So it's not just for little fish, it's not just for MLF style fishing. It is a great technique, and you guys should add it to your arsenal if you don't already incorporate it. So first, what is a drop shot? What the drop shot is, it's a way to suspend your bait up off the bottom. It is not connected directly to a weight. You have your weight down here, you have a leader, anywhere from 4 to 18 inches, 2 feet. It all depends on the type of fishery you're fishing and how close you want your bait to the weight. It suspends your bait up off the bottom and lets that bait soak in that fish's face, and it is a must throw technique. So let's start at the very beginning. Like I said, growing up here out here in California fishing deep reservoirs, a drop shot is a technique that has always been in my arsenal. It's one of the first techniques that I ever learned how to fish because it produced so well. All right, so I'm gonna break this down into 3 or 4 different categories for you guys. We're gonna do nose hook baits, we're gonna do Texas rig baits, wacky rig baits, and then swim baits. That is something I haven't really talked much on in the past. I've mentioned it in a few videos, but drop shotting a little swim bait is a must if you guys are fishing bodies of water with small bait fish. So first off, the most common scenario for a drop shot. You're fishing a reservoir, you're fishing something with some deep structure. You know, let's say a rock pile in 15 to 30 feet. A drop shot is a bait that you can vertically fish very easily. So if you're reading your electronics and you see fish down there, one of the main reasons I almost always have a drop shot tied on is when I see a fish on the unit, I can drop this thing straight down. Again, it's got the bait suspended above the weight. I can drop this thing straight down on the fish and video game fish. What I mean by video game fish, when you can see that arch and you can follow your bait down, you can sit there and look at the unit and shake that bait right in front of that fish, and you can actually watch them eat it. That is a phenomenal scenario when you can see the fish on your unit, drop down and catch them, and it's hard to beat a drop shot and that technique. Also, deep structure, rock piles, whatever it may be, fire out there, let it fall, and this bait is made, this technique is typically used to give action to the bait but not cover a lot of distance to you, so you can really nitpick or really break down those pieces of structure and keep that bait in the strike zone around that structure longer than most other techniques. You know, this thing's down there, sitting there, and you're just shaking the worm. Of course, this is gonna be up flat, dancing around like a little bait fish down there. It just tricks them into eating. So, open hook or nose hook technique. Now, on almost all of my setups, I like a 6'10" to 7-foot rod. Those of you guys that know me know that I grew up finesse fishing, so that's kind of where I invested my money into techniques where the sensitivity was really key. A drop shot for me, that is one of those techniques where I went out and I got the best gear that I could afford. But I have some other great setups down here, so don't get scared by the price. But this is actually the NRX. This is the 822 DSR. This is their drop shot rod paired up with an Xsense. So 6'10" to 7 foot, depending on which brand, which model. I typically throw 10 or 12 pound braid to a fluorocarbon leader. I'm gonna either use a double blood knot or a uni to uni knot, depending on my line size. So that is a drop shot setup. Now the hook is very important on these little nose hook baits. I'm gonna use just a few different hooks. You guys can see this is my drop shot box. Just like I've showed you guys before, I have everything labeled sizes. I have my drop shot weights. But typically, if I'm drop shotting for spotted bass or smallmouth, I'm gonna go with an Owner Mosquito light hook in either a size 1 or 1/0, depending on how big the bait is. You can see I buy all the packs, I put them in one pack and put them in the box. I leave them in the plastic so they don't bang around and dull up. But Mosquito light. Also, I've been playing around with the Gamakatsu G Finesse. Very sharp hook. I've read some different reviews where people were having fish come off because the barb isn't big enough. I haven't had that issue yet, or I haven't had that issue at all. But that is one of the complaints, but I haven't had that issue yet. So the Owner Mosquito Light or the Gamakatsu G Finesse. And just like every video, I'm gonna leave all this tackle linked down below so it'll be easy for you guys to find, because I'm gonna cover a lot of it. So that's the hooks. Typically the weights. Again, for me, I throw tungsten. Primarily 3/16 and 1/4 ounce. The reason for that, I like my baits to always feel the same. That way I know if I don't even feel the bite and I lift up on the bait, I can feel that fish there and I know to set the hook. You know, all these fish aren't gonna come up and just blast the bait, right? Sometimes they're just gonna suck it in, and you're gonna be shaking it. Your bait's gonna kind of stop shaking. You're gonna lift up. You're gonna see that little deflection, and your rod tip's gonna load a little bit more than normal. You're gonna reel down and put it to them. If I really need to get down there in a hurry, I'll go up to a 3/8 or a 1/2 ounce. But tungsten, if you can afford it, go with tungsten, because it adds that much sensitivity to your entire setup. This is a denser metal, a lot harder, and it conducts feel a lot better than lead. Lead is soft, but tungsten is definitely the way to go if you can afford it. One tip on throwing tungsten: you don't want to have a smallmouth come up and tail walk and throw your bait off, so I typically throw an overhand knot on the top of my weight so it cinches down and stays on. Some of my favorite nosed hook baits. As you can see, I like a lot of different styles of baits, and it all depends on the fishery. The bait fish match the hatch, so depending on your fishery, what the bait is, the primary bait fish in your body of water, that's where you're gonna pick 1 or 2 of these and really dial them in. I didn't have any more bags of these, but this is a little tiny fluke. So if your fish are keying in on silver sides or little tiny bait fish, this little fluke nose hook is phenomenal. You can see how much action that little tail has down there. When you're down there and you're just shaking the rod tip, that thing is dancing around. The next bait that I want to talk to you guys about is the Reaction Innovations Shiver Shot. You can see birds and mosquitoes, they're always following me. You can see how much that tail dances around? So you can see it kind of mimics that small fluke, but you have a bait fish, more detailed bait fish look to it. That is a phenomenal nose hook bait as well. Now for years, Matt and I, actually my buddy Jackson keyed me in on this. We've been cutting sweet beavers, Reaction Innovation beavers, in half and fishing those on a drop shot because the overall profile really mimicked small bait fish or small sunfish like bluegill, even small crappie. But Strike King now has the half shell, which is pretty much that. This is quickly becoming one of my favorite nose hook baits. If you want to go with something a little bit bigger of a profile, the smallmouth really love this. This is actually the Dream Shot. Now this category is going to be the biggest category for me. It's the most common setup I use, the nose hook. So I have a lot of different styles of baits. But the Dream Shot, you can see it's a 4.5 inch bait. Real good tail action, real good colors. But the smallmouth and largemouth eat those up. The Robo Worm Alive Shad. Again, another bait fish profile. The benefit of the Robo Worm is you get all 50 or 60 of their colors. You can really match the hatch for your fishery. That is a must-have. Same with just the 4.5 inch Robo Worm. No longer a shad profile or bait fish profile. This is your worm profile. So if you're a worm fisherman, definitely check out the 4.5s. 3 more. I want to talk about this bait real quickly because I don't know that it gets the pub it should, but this is an awesome bait. This is the Gary Yamamoto Pro Senko. See how much smaller that is than a normal Senko? You can see that the tapered tail end. Again, you get the quality of the Gary Yamamoto baits. Hopefully you guys got to watch the underwater footage I had of the stick baits. You guys got to see the action that Senko had underwater. This thing, when nosed hooked, is awesome. You get a bigger profile, so now you have like a 5-inch profile, but you still get that real tantalizing action with that tapered tail. One quick tip for you guys. This is kind of off subject, but this baby bass color really had me thinking and reminiscing. If you guys are throwing a baby bass colored bait, anything, take a Sharpie and color the last 1/2 inch black. If you notice a lot of your 6-inch bass, 5-inch bass swimming around in your fisheries, they all have a real dominant like black line that outlines their tail. The first time I ever tried that, I was actually fishing a tournament with my buddy Don. We were catching spotted bass, and I had caught a little 5-inch spot on the drop shot, and when I pulled it up, it had a real black tail. So I'm like, huh. So I took a Sharpie, colored it black, fired it back out there, and stuck a spot over 3 pounds on my very first cast. So if you guys are throwing baby bass colors, take a look or play around with coloring the tip of the tail black. It'll really help. All right, a little bit of a sidetrack, but 2 other good ones real quick, and we'll jump into the next category. Reaction Innovations Flirt comes in both 4.5 and 6-inch, phenomenal bait. And then the Strike King Fat Baby Finesse, another great bait. And while I'm holding these 2, let's talk spring fishing. Morning Dawn is one of my favorite colors to throw in the springtime. You know, typically when you think drop shot, you think of slow fishing, you think of cold water, tough bite. Clear Lake, I talked about it in my last video. I know several fish over 8 pounds that were caught on a drop shot in the springtime, all on Morning Dawn. I don't know what it is about that color, but if you have a favorite drop shot bait, pick some up in Morning Dawn and give them a try. Okay, so let's talk Texas rig. So again, in the intro, I talked about how universal a drop shot is, how you can fish it on so many different types of fisheries. This is one of the reasons why. So we talked about the nose hook. We talked about some of the favorite baits. Let's talk about Texas rigged, weedless. So if you are fishing ponds or lakes with lots of grass or stuff that you don't want that nose hook to be caught up in all the time, that's where you can rig the Dropshot Texas rig. This is actually rigged on a Gamakatsu G Finesse hook right there. Another great one is gonna be, I actually used this one on heavier line, on bait casters. This is gonna be the Owner Cover Shot. Again, these are all gonna be linked down below, but you can see the possibilities with this. So now you can take your drop shot technique and fish it through stuff that you couldn't do with the nose hook. Texas rig, if I'm fishing with kids or I'm fishing through reeds or toolies and I don't want that exposed hook getting caught up on everything, hooked in myself or whatever it may be, I always tie on a Texas rig setup. Now let's talk about actually fishing these. Again, I talked earlier about fishing this in a specific area but not covering a lot of distance to you. I mean, you can fish these fast. You can fish them real aggressive. You put a heavier weight on there, it's gonna hold this bait in place. Bed fishing, you wanna fish right in that zone. Heavier weight, shake real aggressive with your rod tip, and you're gonna get a lot of movement. Especially springtime, warmer weather, warmer water, the fish are gonna be more aggressive. You can get away with fishing this a lot quicker because the fish are gonna be more aggressive. So fired it out there. Now you're just casting, now you're just covering water. You're not necessarily fishing a specific target, a specific rock pile or a piling. Fired out there to open water, and you're just gonna kind of, I like to lower my rod tip and just shake it. Just kind of drag and shake, and this bait's just gonna kind of hop along. I'll pause it, let it sit, and then just shake it. I'll stop dragging, and it'll just sit there and kind of shimmy in place. Let's talk about Texas rig baits. Any of your favorite soft plastic Texas rig worm or trick worm style of bait will work for this technique. Some of my favorites, the Jackal Flick Shake, the Robo Worm, the 6-inch straight, and fat. Fat right here has a thicker profile. If I'm fishing bodies of water like Clear Lake, this is typically the size worm that I will throw. That Strike King Dream Shot is another good one if you get the bigger size, the 5 1/4, I believe. But hopefully you guys can see those are both 6-inch worms, but this is the fat and this is just the straight tail. Lot fatter bait right here. So take your favorite 5 to 6-inch bait and Texas rig it. All right, let's talk about wacky rigging. Again, this is incorporating the nose hook style bait. I actually use, this is a finesse wide gap hook. It's got more of a gap in it than the drop shot hooks, but you can use your favorite drop shot hook and you take your favorite 6-inch bait, just like I talked about that you would Texas rig. This is actually a Zoom trick worm. The flick shake, all of those types of worms work great. But the benefit to the wacky rig setup is the action of the bait. Again, more aggressive fish, summertime, open water, I'm gonna go with a wacky rig setup. Same thing, this is a 7-foot rod. This is a Shimano SLX with the Shimano Noski. This is a phenomenal setup. This is actually my wife's setup that she's been fishing from the dock. But nose hook, I rigged her up with straight fluorocarbon. Typically I throw braid to a leader, but those of you that are just getting into this technique and you only have one spinning rod, use whatever line you can. It doesn't have to be perfect. Again, you're just getting out there and trying to learn how to catch fish on this technique. So Wacky Rig is a great way to get more aggressive fish or put a different action on your traditional 6-inch Texas rig baits. These mosquitoes are out of hand. No matter where I go or what state I'm in, they're after me. All right. I'm not gonna talk about bait casters yet. We're gonna get into that in just a second. I do want to talk about swim baits because I believe drop shotting a swim bait is a technique that, one, hasn't been discussed too often, but two, is a great way to catch suspended fish. And I feel like now with the the live scope and all the different transducers that are seeing real time on fish coming towards you or suspended fish, the Humminbird, the 360, you can look out and see 360 degrees around your boat and you can see fish suspended up off the bottom. I feel like we're getting that much closer to really dialing in the last frontier of fishing, and that is keying in on suspended fish. If you can really figure out how to catch suspended fish, I think you have a big advantage over other anglers because they are tough to catch. Now with technology, it's easier to see them, and I think this technique right here is a great way to catch them. Obviously, you could drop down. You're seeing a fish in 15 feet, you drop down 15 and you can dangle it in front of their face. But what I like to do with a swim bait, I'm fishing a long tapering point, I'm sitting shallow, fishing out deep. I know the fish are sitting in 12 to 15 feet. I'm gonna fire that bait out, I'm gonna flip my bail, and I'm gonna let this thing pendulum back to the boat as I slowly reel it. And what this bait's gonna do, it's gonna pendulum down through those fish, get to that depth, and then I can shake and reel it and I can actually swim this bait down. If the fish are close to the bottom, I can drop it straight down. But the drop shot, firing it out there and letting it swing through and swim down through as it falls is a technique that works really well on suspended fish. Again, you could throw a swim bait, but if you're trying to finesse them, this is a great technique. So real quick, some of my favorite baits to throw for that technique. Obviously, the Kitech, the Swing Impact Fat, the 2.8. Another favorite of mine, it's a smaller bodied bait. Jeez, I'm sorry guys. Is gonna be the Easy Shiner. That's the 3-inch and the 4-inch. You can see it's a lot narrower bait than the Fat Swing Impact, and it's got real good tail action. That is a phenomenal bait. Another, oh, I didn't talk about these two. Another one that I really like, this is the bait that I pulled off. That is the Demiki Armor Shad, but they also have it with a tail. So, again, take your favorite 2.8 bait, put it on the drop shot. You can see the difference there in the tails, and you guys will definitely catch more fish. Okay, so we talked about nose hook baits. We talked about kind of how to fish them. We talked about Texas rig baits and Wacky Rig baits. Now let's talk about bait casters. I throw a drop shot on a bait caster actually quite a bit. So for those of you guys that don't want to pick up the spinning rod or the fairy wand or whatever you guys want to call it, try throwing a drop shot on a bait caster. One of the funnest bites I ever got on was on Lake Falcon in Texas. Now you think Lake Falcon, you're probably not thinking about drop shot, but I was actually drop shotting a 10 and 12-inch worm. I was throwing braid to 15-pound fluoro, and I was jacking them in those trees. It's just a different presentation. It's a different profile suspended up in their face than obviously they were used to seeing. But here on Clear Lake, I got this rigged up. This is actually the Mega Bass. This is the braillist. It's a 7.5. It's kind of a light, kind of flipping stick. I have 17-pound fluoro tied to braid. So I have a 30-pound braid tied to 17-pound fluoro. I have a straight shank hook and a 7-inch robo worm. I'm power fishing this. You guys may have heard of a power shot or whatever you call it, but I am taking a light flipping stick and I am putting this in the tulies, in the reeds, in the cover, and jacking fish. You fish it just like you would a normal flip bait or whatever. Flip it in there, let it fall, shake, shake, shake. They don't eat it, shake, 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 go out, give them another one. Again, this is just a different profile, a different setup that I think you guys that like to flip and pitch, I think if you guys add this to your arsenal, you'll find that a lot of your fish haven't seen this and you'll catch a lot of fish. All right, guys, so I kind of flew through that. Just like these mosquitoes flying around me. The drop shot. If you guys have not played around with learning it or even giving it a chance, I really think you should. Again, you can catch fish. It doesn't matter if you're in California fishing clear water, you're in Florida flipping or pitching, you're in Michigan fishing crystal clear water, or down in Mexico throwing 12-inch worms on a power shot. It is a technique that you guys should try out. Again, everything will be linked down below in the video description. But this springtime, get out, and when the bite is tough and you're not getting them on a reaction, try throwing the drop shot. Even if it's on a Texas rig setup, I think you guys will find that your fish that are more subtle, they're kind of pulled back into the reeds, tulies, you can get them on that. The drop shot technique, you finesse fishermen, you power fishermen, and everything in between, you guys should find a way to incorporate a drop shot into your arsenal. If you guys have any questions, please leave those down below in the comments section. Matt and I will try and get to those. Again, everything will be linked down below, from favorite setups to line to hooks to baits, colors, all that fun stuff to really save you guys time for searching around. All right, guys, so there it is, the drop shot. Hopefully I didn't go through that too quickly. If you guys have any questions, please leave those down below in the comments section. There's a lot to cover, there's a lot to learn, but I believe a drop shot is one of the most universal techniques there is. You can catch fish from the West Coast to Florida to Michigan to Maine and everything in between. Doesn't matter if you're throwing 4-pound and little baits like this, or 15 or 20-pound down in Mexico throwing big worms. A drop shot or a power shot is something that you should really play with and really try. Give it a fair chance. It doesn't have to be on a spinning rod. For those of you guys that don't like spinning rods, throw it on a bait caster, but give it a fair chance this spring because I think it will impress you guys. If you guys have any questions, please leave those down below in the comments section. As always, Matt and I will try and get to those as soon as possible. We are growing as fast as we ever have, guys, and it's because of you guys sharing our videos, subscribing. It is phenomenal. You know, Matt's on the road right now. He's in the Midwest, and just the stories he's told me so far of shaking hands and meeting you guys at the ramps and meetups and all that stuff. We really appreciate it. It is it's why we do this. You know, fishing has done so much for Matt and I's family, and we just want to give back. So if you guys haven't shared our channel, please do so. Check out our website. Little different write-ups there, a little bit different material, and it's easier to find videos. You know, sometimes on YouTube it's really hard to find topics of videos in a specific channel, but if you go to our website and go down to the search bar and you just type in drop shot, everything that we've ever done on drop shot will come up. If you type frogging, same thing. It's a lot easier to find techniques and videos on our website versus YouTube. But again, guys, we appreciate you. We appreciate the support. We appreciate the subscribers, all of you guys. We really do appreciate it. It's what it's all about, and so we thank you. If you guys learned something from this video, please give us a thumbs up. Remember to subscribe to our channel. We'll talk to you soon, guys. Have a good one.